Hello friends, I'm Sean Prophet, the energy philosopher. It hasn't been a good year or even a good decade for our global energy system. So I want to talk to you about this predicament. It's no exaggeration to say that this is a matter of both immediate urgency and of grave long-term importance. The pervasive influence of energy and electrical power on all areas of civilization is why I chose to study electrical engineering. And it's why the economics of energy is something I've spent my entire life studying. And it's why I spend so much time following energy news and trying to correct popular misconceptions wherever I can. Recently, we've been dealing with a couple of high-profile energy disasters, the biggest of which being the nuclear plant near meltdown at Fukushima, Japan, which is still in progress as I speak. And we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but we know it's not going to be very good. This has had far-reaching impacts. Then there was the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico by British Petroleum last year. And that's something that also has not yet shown its entire full impact on our energy policy. We have rising global oil prices. Some people blame speculation, some people blame OPEC, and some people blame the current Mideast violence. But the fact of the matter is that we have some long-term underlying factors as well that are pushing up the price of oil. In short, with energy, we're at an inflection point, no less important than Chernobyl, or 3 Mile Island, or the Arab oil embargo of 1973. Energy security is national and ultimately global security. When we see disasters and mishaps in energy production, it's the tip of a huge iceberg that we don't normally think about. We only react to what we see and feel financially, and unfortunately lately we've been seeing a lot. When I was 12 years old, on the occasion of America's bicentennial on July 4th, 1976, I stood on a platform in Washington, D.C. in front of about 1,000 people and gave a 20-minute speech on the dangers of nuclear power plants. In taking that stand, I joined many other scientists and concerned citizens who'd been saying those things since the 1950s when nuclear power was introduced. It was a very unpopular stand, especially since we had just passed the peak of U.S. oil production in 1970 and were feeling the pinch of America's first energy crisis. Nuclear held such promise of power too cheap to meter and of a weaning of the U.S. off of fossil fuels, the need for foreign oil imports, and so forth. Only 3 years later, the 3 Mile Island disaster virtually shut down the U.S. nuclear industry. 10 years later, in 1986, the Chernobyl disaster became the catalyst for the opening and eventual breakdown of the Soviet system. Today, in 2011, the world has changed. We've become far more interconnected. This has good and bad effects. It's good because we're communicating and sharing and trading as never before. It's bad because what affects one country affects us all. Aside from the tragic loss of life and the incredible suffering that is inflicted on the people of Japan, the tsunami of March 11th created a parts shortage that has shut down several American auto plants. Stoppage of shipments of videotape has thrown a wrench in television production worldwide. Needless to say, the Fukushima disaster, along with Japan's antiquated power grid, will make the recovery that much harder, not just for the Japanese people, but for the entire world. Energy is as important as food. Energy is, in fact, food for the economy. Many observers think that the oil prices of $148 a barrel in 2008 pushed the world into recession. Whether that's true or not, 2008 was the first time we've seen food riots. The current Mideast turmoil is, in fact, about food as much as anything else, specifically wheat. There's a scarcity of wheat, and food prices are way up. We're seeing food insecurity rising globally for the first time in decades. This transition that we're going through right now is as important as any transition we've ever been through in human history. There are more people, the stakes are higher, and that's not even talking about the issue of the climate. Energy and food are intertwined since nothing gets grown or delivered without fuel. A breakdown in the energy system is a breakdown in the social system. And underlying our terrible budget deficit is an even larger environmental deficit, and that's something that I'm going to be talking a lot about in upcoming episodes. So, what's most important to solving our energy problem is to realize that we've been dealing with a tremendous amount of energy misinformation. Most of what you read and hear is not just wrong, but wildly wrong. And there's a reason for that. People know that energy is life, and people know that their life depends on it. So since energy is food for the economy, it touches everyone. Everyone has a strong opinion about energy issues. And it's not just opinions we're talking about. People get passionately worked up over these things, and the average person has only the most superficial understanding, which makes sense because civilization is specialized for a reason. If everyone had to know everything about every service, we wouldn't get much done. But that doesn't change the fact that people are unusually touchy about energy. The price of gas can affect presidential elections, and even though gasoline is cheaper than milk or bottled water, we've become accustomed to the services it delivers. The energy contained in a gallon of gasoline is equivalent to about 49 days of human labor. I know this is an amazing statistic, but it's something, again, that I will explain. When we talk about trying to make light bulbs more efficient, it's almost as if you've threatened someone's firstborn child. They don't want to give up their incandescent light bulbs. Now, these lights right here are LEDs, and they work just as well, and that's another topic that I'll be talking more about. Climate change has become the most polarizing issue after religion, and I found that out the hard way by experience in trying to even talk about the most basic aspects of climate change. Pretty soon we're not talking about energy or climate, we flipped over into tinfoil hat territory. Within 10 seconds of mentioning energy efficiency, light bulbs, gas prices, or climate change, you can be talking about the UN, socialism, global government, and chemtrails, or even how the HAARP experiment, I kid you not, is responsible for global warming. There is no claim too wacky to be pulled out in service of debunking climate change. Talking about changing the incentives of our economy through carbon taxes or gas guzzler taxes or rewarding efficient behavior by individuals and businesses, and it's as if you've punched someone in the face. They get extremely upset. People only see negatives in changing our energy infrastructure, and that's reinforced by the pundits, who are lucky if they get 30% of it right. The fantastic ones get maybe half right. So people are so consumed by panic at the thought of rising energy prices that they don't understand that a rise in energy prices is the first step to a better, cleaner, more prosperous future. Energy prices are so pervasive in the economy that when they rise, it directly reduces disposable income, very much like a regressive tax, meaning a tax on the poor. With energy costs, the poor suffer more than the rich since it takes more of their income to buy a unit of energy. Yet the poor, and all of us together, can become more creative in how we improve our use of energy. And that's the silver lining in high energy prices. Creativity becomes the substitute for more expensive energy. Creativity is free. Changing behavior can be nearly free and even be a net positive on the economy. A lot of people say that when energy prices rise, corporations just pass it along to consumers. And there is some truth to that, but corporations also change how they do business. Efficiency saves money, and when energy prices rise across the board, there are huge incentives for smart corporations to cut their energy costs and cut their energy use while delivering the same level of service. Those companies which transform themselves through rising to a competitive challenge will prosper and others will go out of business. This is the essence of capitalism, and it's something all capitalists should be proud of. It is the change in our energy system we should all be embracing, and that's why I'm doing this series. Right now, we are extracting record amounts of oil and basic commodities, and we still can't keep up with global demand spurred by rising living standards. Oil production is set to plateau or decline in the next few years, even as demand grows very strongly. It is about to become a global bidding war in many cases. Trivial and recreational uses of energy in wealthy countries are competing directly against essential uses such as food production in the poorest countries. Meat production in wealthy countries is diverting grain from human consumption. There are 1 billion people suffering from the problems of energy overconsumption, such as obesity, at the same time as another billion suffer from malnutrition. These are choices we should just not have to make. These are ironies we should not have to live with. Changing our incentives and rewarding efficiency will improve our quality of life, not just for the poorest countries, but also for the industrial nations. It will create jobs. It will bring renewed prosperity, just like the information tech revolution of the 1980s brought the United States out of the 1982 recession. So the clean tech revolution will bring us out of both our financial and ecological doldrums. It is the only way for the world economy to shake off the death spiral of unsustainable growth based on the extraction of finite resources. One thing is clear, we cannot go on like this. Whether you watch CNN or Fox News, whether you like NPR or Democracy Now!, you know that something is seriously wrong with our energy system. You know that huge profits are being made by a few while the many suffer. And you know it's going to radically change your life or your children's life sooner or later. And so when you hear about the latest energy disaster or crop failures related to climate change, or you fret about paying more than $4 a gallon for gasoline, what you need most is clear and concise information as to what you can do. There are 2 areas you can make an immediate difference, with your purchasing power and with your vote. Both offer great opportunities for change of our energy system. Time permitting, I'm going to do my best to break down the choices for you and use my lifetime of experience to help demystify the world energy picture and clarify the decisions we face as we make our way forward. Thank you for watching. Until next time.